Welcome to another installment of This Is Not Normal on the Political Drain podcast with Drill Sergeant Doug, aka Admin Doug, a U.S. Army veteran, teacher, musician, and family man from Jamaica, now fights for justice and democracy through commentary and humor. Follow him on YouTube at Political Drain and at Sons of Liberty Official as Drill Sergeant, aka Admin Doug, continues to protect our freedoms.
So let's take it back to us now. I think that there's a lot to learn about for us in this conflict resolution. What would you take in what you've told me about the Aztecs and the Maya, about how we are to be structuring our neighborhoods and dealing with what can we take from them and learn about conflict resolution in a way that's not, American, go to jail, die, or whatever. And then secondly, I'd like to learn about this idea of tribute in a way that actually it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to sound and look like, that we can learn from that. Two things: conflict resolution and tribute.
Sure. So we famously, we know that Indigenous people didn't have police or jails or prisons or anything. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we didn't have those things. Enslavement did occur, and that happened more on sometimes on a punishment basis if you couldn't resolve. And it wasn't even necessarily always punishment. That was also kind of last resort. The whole purpose in if somebody messed up, if somebody committed a crime, so to speak, if somebody did harm to another person, was that they were given a safe space to take accountability. So let's say you stole something from a neighbor and you got caught. You have to then take it back to the neighbor, apologize, and rebuild your relationship with that neighbor. Not only, and that's how current kind of restorative justice works, the perpetrator and the victim have a conversation and try to restore a relationship, or at least come to terms with, forgiveness to some level or whatnot. But with Indigenous restorative justice, wasn't the perpetrator or the victim, it included the whole community. And it also included the whole community to take accountability. Why did this person have to go steal?
Wow.
Where did we fail as a community, right? So yes, this person did wrong, and yes, they need to apologize for it, take accountability for it, rebuild trust and relationships with the person that they violated, along with the rest of the community. But also the community needs to step and say, but why did this person feel the need to steal? Right. So it was cyclical. Justice was cyclical. It was not something that just ended with the person who did wrong. It incorporated everybody and what everybody had to work on and do so. So this happened in like smaller communities. The Mexica actually had a tiered court system in their culture as a larger city state. So you could take your grievances to a lower court, your local court, your neighborhood court. And if you didn't feel like the justification was there, you can then move it up to a higher court, which would be where you had multiple neighborhoods at that point. And then kind of the way the United States does theirs, but it mimics that system.
Okay.
So you can move it up to a higher court, to like a Supreme Court, where at that point what Europeans call the emperor would have final say in the matter at the end of the day. But usually things would get resolved at the lower courts for the most part, and those going to the higher courts weren't always. They were like major things that would happen, right? Major grievances that couldn't be dissolved and needed more guidance, wisdom from spiritual leaders, elders, and so forth. So it wasn't like a bunch of lawyers and judges doing anything. This was coming from elders, spiritual leaders, medicine people that were coming together and helping to make these decisions and help rebalance the social order, right? That rebalance the culture in society and what happened.
Awesome.
So on that level, yeah, that's how that kind of worked on that level. And you see that kind of everywhere. Different ways of doing it. Like not all city states had multi-court levels. You know, everybody just had a different way. But the core of it was that the accountability was held on everybody. Everybody took accountability for why this thing happened. Where did we fail at? And where can we fix this? And the other one, what was the other question? I'm
Tribute.
sorry.
Let's talk about tribute.
Tribute.
And so we got about a good 7 minutes here.
Sure. Tribute was basically a form of you're in our territory, in our region, and if you're going to stay here because we're stewards of these lands, we know what's best for the lands. We understand that, you know, you could utilize these resources, but you're going to have to contribute to everybody else who is regionally in this land. So you will have to give a certain percentage of whatever you take in from our resources back to us. So that's kind of how it worked. Everybody did it a little bit differently. It was kind of used as mutual aid for some regions. So everybody put in, and if something happened, a flood happened and took out a village, then that mutual aid was already there, supplied, and can be distributed out fairly to other people. Or again, it was like just as a way of saying, hey, you're in our territory, show respect. This is your limit. This is what you do. And you bring back something else, because part of indigenous systems of reciprocity were to always give back in return. So if you're somebody else's territory and you're taking from their lands, it is respectful to bring back something in return to the people that you're taking from. And so that's how tribute worked. It wasn't like a tax system in the way we know it today. It was more of just a respect and honor thing, and knowing whose lands you're in to respect their laws on how those lands should be handled and taken care of.
So if you have a dispute with land, this is my land. My parents grew up here. My grandparents grew up here. What makes you where was the difference? How do I know that you're the person to give tribute to? How did you find me here? Like how did that start, and how did that become? Who decides how that is okay?
So typically, I mean, while we migrated and stuff, like it took, like for example, the Mexica migration from somewhere in the northern part of Mexico, southwest part of the United States. We don't know the exact location, but their migration down to what is now Mexico City was a 200-year migration, approximately.
Oh, gotcha.
So migrations happened. You would stay settled in certain places. You would learn from different people that you come across, things like that. So obviously when you're getting into a location and you're talking, just like anywhere, like how long have you guys been here? Oh, our ancestors been here for thousands of years. There is no need to lie. Where are you coming from? Oh, we're coming from the north, or we're coming from the south, right? So, you know, it was customary. And again, one of those kind of basic overall principles of you're in someone else's land, you respect it, you find who the stewards are, you talk to them, you see what's acceptable. And if you don't, that's usually when wars would happen. Like you coming up and you just taking stuff.
No.
Now we beefing, right?
If I
But
hit you
if
with
you
that
came,
painted ball, wait a minute.
there you go. Exactly. So, you know, that's another reason why wars would stop. If you just came in and just started taking without seeking permission, without talking to the people who have already been there, then, you know, that would be where conflict would arise. But if you came in with respect, you were granted, you know, everything you needed, if it was within reason and was able to sustain everybody else within that region. So yeah, we didn't have borders. We had territorial boundaries, but not colonial borders, where in the sense of you weren't allowed to come into our territory without permission. You were freely to walk into the territory at any
It's the
point in
earth.
time. Yeah, you're able to go anywhere. You just got to respect it. And if you come across people who have been there, then talk to them and find out what's necessary to survive. When we had people coming all the way from the north of like where Canada is, and who came down to the southwest, like the Apache and the Navajo or the Nene, they were new to the region, so there was conflict there initially, and then they had to learn how to live in the desert because they weren't coming from desert climate. So they had to eventually learn, and who else was going to teach them? The
Right.
people who had already been there. So, you know, it eventually works itself out because they realize we have to build relationships in order to live in the desert, because this is not our normal habitat, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's constantly, it's just always about building relationships and working through the conflict. And if it doesn't happen, I mean, again, we know nobody's perfect. If those wars happen, the consequences would be there. And then you had to work to really rebuild those relationships and figure out where the disconnect happened.
I think that's a big part of understanding how this works, is not that you'll never have war, or not that you'll never have discipline somebody doing, or somebody who's doing something wrong with the tribute. There could be anything, but the idea of accountability with the whole community, the idea of restoring relationship after war, after the disagreement, and those two main things, and the idea of, instead of ownership, it's respect for who's been there on how the land is best used here. I think those are completely applicable when we're starting our communities, when we're teaching our people in our neighborhoods how we'd like to see things going and start practicing. And I like that. I like that. Thank you so much for the history on this one. I know we usually can go a little bit longer, but I got a hard deadline this time. I'm teaching drums in a second. I'm doing my reciprocal economy. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome. Let's see if I can put up some like pictures and stuff while you're talking about these different groups. And I think next time we talk about this, I'd love to go down south. I'd love to go into the Inca, because I know that was a long stretch of land that they were, if we call it now, an empire. That history is just so interesting, and we don't know anything about it. We don't know anything about the people who were here first. Thank you for helping us change that, my friend.
Fun fact, the Incas' territory was half of the United States. It would be the western half of the United States.
They were all the way up?
Well, no, that's how large.
Oh, that's how large it is. Yeah, it's thin. It's long, but it's thin. It's not like...
But if you were to put it at the land mass, it would be considered that the territory that they had controlled was half of the United States from the western half.
Yeah. That's a lot, too. Still a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. We're doing it again. Guys, you're going to see part 1. And by the time you get to this place, you probably see part 2. But if you are a Patreon member or a member of the channel, you'll get the whole thing Wednesday. Thank you so much.
Bye. Have a good one.
Hey, yeah, you. Before you click away to watch someone unbox a tactical toothbrush, let's talk about something real. Political Drain isn't just another content mill. We're a digital front in a very real war. Not with bullets, but with ideas, with action, and with solidarity. We pair urgent news with critical education. And we build community around actual resistance, not the hashtag kind. The kind that moves. But here's the thing. None of this is free. It isn't. Behind every video is time, labor, research, and some weird guy asking if we're going to pay the hosting bill. And yeah, some of that money goes to things we can't necessarily say out loud. If you know, you know. Let's just say our special ops aren't Call of Duty LARPers. They're people making real moves to protect, uplift, and organize. You're not just funding a channel. You're funding a resistance network in a world where capital still calls the shots. Unfortunately, in a system built on artificial scarcity, even mutual aid has a price tag. And if we want to grow, if we want to win, we need your help. We need your help. So if you've got even a few bucks to spare, toss it our way. It's not for ads. It's not for merch drops, but for people making moves in the shadows so others can do it in the light. It's just us and you. So fund the mission, fund the fight, fund the future, because nobody's coming to save us. We save each other. That's how this works.
That was the Political Drain podcast, which can be heard on www.groovechillradio.com/political-drain and can be viewed on the Political Drain YouTube channel anytime. Once again, thank you for listening to Groove Chill as we resist fascism in any form, pursue democracy, peace, and love.